Mahasoopawamsaya can be considered an encyclopedia on the food culture and the historical development and evolution of food in Sri Lanka. This book, which expands over 3 chapters, begins with the beginning of consumption of food by the humans in the world, analyzes the origin of food culture with the ancestors of the mankind and how it gradually evolved up to the present day. From this point of onwards, we explain the very beginning of the human food culture and how they developed the practice of cooking food. 6 million years ago, the human ancestors who lived in Africa began their two-legged journey. Australopithecus, who existed 4 million years ago, was quite similar in features to the modern man, and the unique feature of their food culture was that they did not cook food but followed a pattern quite similar to the food habits of the chimpanzees. They consume raw vegetables, fruit, yams and grains, but not any meat. Since they consume raw food, they spend half of the day for food consumption, just like the chimpanzees. Homo habilis, who lives 2.5 million years ago, was the one who believed to have consumed meat for the first time in the history. They have used special tools made out of stone to cut and chop meat. When compared to the vegetarian food habits, consumption of meat had been a complicated practice, since hunting had been a very challenging task. Anthropologists believe that Homo habilis has consumed the leftovers of the animal carcasses hunted by the other predatory animals. Most of the nutrition from the food we consume are used for the development of brain, which consists of billions of neurons. The food culture of the mankind has a direct relevance to the development of brain, which is vital for the advancement of the human evolution. Animals with comparatively larger bodies like the cattle and the elephants spent a major part of their day for food consumption. One revolutionary event during this prehistoric time had turned the human civilization upside down. Homo erectus, who lived 1.8 million years ago, began the practice of cooking food. Even though they were not aware of how fire can be generated, they used to collect fire from the bushfires that occur occasionally in the forest and cook food using that fire. This marked the beginning of a new era in the food culture of the humans. Apart from collecting fire, they gradually started generating fire and roast yams, fish and meat they ate. The practice of cooking had occurred accidentally when they consumed meat of the animals caught and dead in the bushfires. They discovered that the meat tasted better than the raw meat. They liked the delicious taste of the roasted meat. This triggered their enthusiasm towards cooking food. When it comes to the period of Homo sapiens, most of the communities in the world had the practice of cooking food. Cooking enabled humans to gain more energy from a comparatively lesser quantity of food. The disadvantage of the consumption of raw food was that they had to spend almost half of the day to consume food. Since they could gain more energy by consuming a lesser quantity of cooked food, they had more time to engage in the other activities. This enabled them to spend time for new inventions, travel, and try agriculture. The origin of the Homo sapiens dates back to 2 million years. They believed to have begun their journey of evolution in Africa. Soon after, they began to migrate to the other locations beyond Africa. Using a few routes, they were able to reach other lands in the world. According to the available evidence and sources, they believed to have reached Sri Lanka about 50,000 years ago. Evidence found in the prehistoric locations like Iranamadu, Balangoda, Pahiyangala, Batatumbalena, Belilene, Bellan Bandi Palace, Horton Tanna, Godawaya, Doravakanda, Mini Atelier, Ibban Katua provide proof for this assumption. The historic period of Sri Lanka begins with the Anuradhapura period in the 6th century BC. There is archaeological proof that the beginning of agricultural activities, pottery industry, and the evolution of Sinhala language had begun by 9th century BC. Anuradhapura period begins after the arrival of Prince Vijaya, that is, the period before 543 BC. All the written evidence including Mahavamsa, Thupavamsa, Deepavamsa, and the other chronicles provide information regarding the Anuradhapura era post the arrival of Prince Vijaya. After the coronation of King Vijaya, the Anuradhapura kingdom existed for several decades until 1017 AD. Under the reign of many kings, arrival of Prince Vijaya marks a turning point in the food culture of the island. The civilization was at a peak with the development of the agriculture and irrigation techniques. The most significant unique features of the Anuradhapura era are rice boards and porridge boards, Bat Oru and Kanda Oru. Anuradhapura period was followed by the Polonnaru period, which spans over the years between 1017 AD and 1215 AD. Several Sinhalese kings and the Tamil kings who have invaded the island have ruled Polonnaru. There are fewer sources on the food culture of this particular era in the history. But the literary work compiled during this period bear ample evidence regarding the contemporary food culture. The next period is the Dambadini era. Dambadini Asna, a literary work compiled about the reign of King Parakramabahu II, reports that King Parakramabahu II had excelled in the culinary arts. It also bears information on the officials in charge of the food and other food-related requirements of the king. Diya Vadanno, Bat Vadanno, Til Vadanno, and Bulat Vadanno, water providers, rice providers, oil providers, and betel leaves providers respectively, were some such officials. The officer in charge of the royal kitchen was called the Pachanagara Adhyakshaka, the director of the kitchen during the Dambadini period. The end of the Dambadini era marks the dawn of the Kurunagala period, which spans from 1284 AD to 1341 AD. Reference to the contemporary literary work is essential in investigating the food culture of this period. The word Arakkamia, which means the chef, had been used during this time. There had been a special chef to prepare the royal meals. The next period is the Gampala era, which begins in 1341 AD. Written evidence on the food culture of this period is lesser when compared to the Dambadini and Kurunagala periods. Saddharmalankarya contributes significantly in revealing facts on the food culture of the Gampala period. 1415 AD marks the beginning of yet another unique era in the history of Sri Lanka, the Kotte period. The influence of the Western nations was seen for the first time in the history during this era. This period can be considered as a significant era in the history of food culture of the island too. The last kingdom of the island, the Kandyan kingdom, marks its beginning in 1592 AD. This lasted about 225 years from 1592 AD to 1815 AD. According to legend, the Kandyan kingdom had been a sub-administrative unit under the Kotte and Sitawaka for nearly 100 years from 1473 AD to 1581 AD. Sri Lanka became a colony under the Western nations for the first time in 1505 AD, when the Portuguese conquered the island. In the years that followed, Sri Lanka was under the Dutch and the British respectively. In 1948, Sri Lanka became an independent nation. Mahasoopawamsaya unveils the historical evolution of food and food culture of this country since then. Mahasoopawamsaya should be edited accordingly in future, enriching the content with the food-related facts of the present and the future for the use of the generations to come.